This is Your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lyndsay Soprano. On the show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. The past couple of weeks has been incredibly rough over here. I have spent more time in my wheelchair and in bed than I have in a very long time. And I know a lot of the reasons behind this is because, it starts with 100% my nutritional deficiencies. As we know on the show, I talk a lot about nutrition and inflammation, and we talk about how I've got this cute little eating disorder that kind of crept up on me. And I'm working through it in my own time. But what I'm learning on this show is that I'm doing a lot of it wrong. And I have so many wonderful healers and practitioners and nutritionists and all these amazing, amazing people that are here and they're talking to me. And I'm listening to all of the messages. And I feel like, my God, Lyndsay, I've got to pick up at least a couple of these and start implementing them. But we get to a place, especially in the chronic pain community, where we have so much information that we're given and so many tests and so many blood tests and so many things, and we don't know what the hell to do with them, right? And we know that with nutritional deficiency coupled with massive amounts of stress, pretty sure everybody's body is going to be hot and inflamed and burning like mine, right? And as a smart little chickie over here, it's frustrating that I know the things that I need to do in relation to nutrition and food and stress management. I'm just still not getting it right. So my big hitters are nutrition and stress, right? And if I could get a grip on these legitimately, it would be a game changer for me. And I don't know if it's because I don't care for food as much as the average Joe does that I'm like pushing back on it. I just need like a little bit more support. And there's somebody that we're going to talk to a little bit today who's going to help talk a little bit about that. And what I've learned so much about lowering inflammation and the things that we eat, it's not even just about eliminating the things that we eat as much as it's adding things in. And that is where I'm lacking, because I've let go of all of the shit I'm not supposed to eat, right? I haven't put anything back in. And it is unbelievable. And like I mentioned, I've gone through so many tests, and we go through these scans and doctor's appointment. We have so much information and so much frustration. We don't have like a central guide to help us analyze all of this and then go, okay, as a holistic human being, because that's who we are. We're a whole person, even though I kind of feel like I'm sliced and diced and thrown all over the map every day. It's driving me nuts, and it's lurking over me, and it's lurking over me every day. And something that it's an official like Lyndsay moment. It's time to do something about it. So let's talk about it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you my unbelievably adorable guest, Hope Pedraza.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet.
So let's talk about, thank you for being here today, Hope.
Thank you, Lyndsay. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So Hope is a certified holistic nutritionist, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, certified hair tissue and mineral analysis expert, which you are going to really be interested in, Reiki Master, a human design guide, and a founder of an inBalance pilates-based fitness franchise. And like she's got nothing else going on in her life, the host of the Hopeful and Wholesome Podcast, which I'm going to be in later on in the year. So, all right, I'm rolling out the red carpet for you. I'd like to kind of start with how you got into the field of like functional nutrition and medicine, and let's take it from there.
Yeah. So, my path is kind of twofold. I resonate with your story about your eating disorder because that was kind of part of mine. I had years and years of disordered eating behavior and led me down the path of like just being completely obsessive compulsive about food and exercise, right? So like you asked me the calorie count of any food on the planet and I could tell you. So I think that's part of it was just this obsession I had with food for a while. But the other piece of it, and haven't needing to heal from that. But the other piece of it, I grew up with a lot of digestive issues as a kid, just like colonoscopies and endoscopes and all the poking and prodding and cameras and up and in and all the places, all the things.
Oh yeah.
And, all for the final doctor to be like, oh, you have IBS, which is like, I don't know, your stomach's messed up. Like that's, they don't give you any help or direction, whatever. So I just kind of took it on myself as I got older to like read and learn and educate myself. And it was kind of just the journey I took upon myself because I realized nobody else was really going to help me and nothing, the doctors were saying was helping me at all. I think that too was like, I just had this fascination with the human body and just like figuring things out. And so it just kind of led me down the path of that. And then combine that with my love of movement. I was a dancer growing up for 20, however many years. And so that led me into Pilates. And so initially it was like this combination of, I had my Pilates studio and I wanted to create this kind of comprehensive experience for people. Like they'd come in and get their workout or whatever, but I also wanted to offer them this nutrition piece. And so I initially was just basic nutrition coaching, right? Just kind of like, we talked about calories, we talked about carbs and, just kind of basic things. And me realizing that these women that I was working with, I was talking to, was like a much deeper conversation than just calories and macros. Like you've got like serious hormonal issues going on. Like you've got your thyroid is totally jacked up. Like it was deeper issues and a much bigger conversation than, how many calories you're eating for lunch.
Sure.
And so I think that really drove me into the functional part and, getting my certification as an FDNP, where I wanted to be able to reach women at this deeper level to provide holistic, you're saying holistic or like that holistic experience and really healing them from the inside out and getting to the root cause.
Well, and that's awesome because the root cause is the root of the problem.
Yeah, totally.
So when people come in and they start to work with you, where do you start with women? Because do you only work with women? Because we're awesome. So
yeah, well, we are. Yeah, I mean, I do work with some men, and I work with kids every now and then. But I think for the majority, I draw in women for the most part, and that's who I started working with. But I don't discriminate, so I work with men or with kids. But it just happens that way, and I do like working with women just because I empathize so much with everything that not that not that I've dealt with all the things that women are dealing with that come to me, but I just empathize with them so much because I know I can at least empathize with the frustration of like, I just want answers. Like somebody just tell me what's freaking going on in my body. Like I understand what that's like. So I feel that.
Yeah. And that's, that's where we all end up getting to, right? Especially in the chronic pain community. And it's not even just chronic pain, it's trauma that comes out and like brings its head up in other places in our body. And we're not really sure why. And that's actually the pain. It's not something that's physically wrong with you. And that's we talk about on the show on every episode about the fact that how trauma sits in our bodies, right? And how there's so many different ways to go about it and the approaches behind it. So can you talk a little bit about what your approach is within your business and how you are helping other people in that regard?
Yeah. So, really, I'd say it's like a 3-prong approach that I take. Because we're looking at the physical piece, right? Like I run the functional labs, we're looking at what's going on in the physical body. But just like you said, I am a firm believer that every physical ailment that's coming to the surface has its issues in the energetic emotional body. Like there's something in the energetic emotional body that's caused this thing to happen. And so of course we want the physical symptoms to go away. I mean, who doesn't? We want to feel comfortable in our bodies, but only addressing the physical pieces. And this is something I've learned throughout, my work as an FDNP and a holistic nutritionist. It's only going to get you so far addressing the physical piece. And like you're talking about the trauma and the emotions. This morning, I had a session. I do emotional release sessions. This is one way that I work with my clients. So I kind of combine my Reiki training with, I don't know if you're familiar with the emotion code, but basically just finding where stored emotions are. And we work to release them, like pinpoint where they are, identify them, work to release them. And like I had a session this morning with one of my clients and she found this like very pinpointed pain that was in her left ovary. And we ended up uncovering that. Yeah, it was very specific. Very specific.
Yeah.
Yes. And she realized that it was shame and this whole specific event came into her head. This is when it happened. And she's like, for years, even my massage therapist has been saying like something's going on with your left side of your body. And I felt she had a cyst that had grown in her ovary just a few months ago. Like it was literally manifesting from this emotion that was stored in her body. So like, I don't need any more evidence than that like your emotions, your trauma that you're holding on to is manifesting in the physical body. And so for me, it's combining that physical piece with this like energetic, emotional, spiritual piece of uncovering the real root cause. We're talking about root cause, the real root cause, like the trauma, the emotions that have been stored and that are just, creating blockages and stagnation and imbalances in the body.
It really is amazing. Like I've been thinking back as I've been doing a shit ton of emotional work. Yesterday was a biggie, damn near like floored me. I was down. Well, I was down for the entire day and the night and I could barely function, but I released a lot of stuff that I didn't even know was sitting where it was sitting. It's just nuts when you are open to the idea that energy is and trauma is stuck in places in your body. It is so much easier to start working through the pain and the traumas and identifying what they are. Because, you know, when we're younger, we're in high school, we're in college, and even when we're out of college, nothing can touch us. We think that we're great, you know, just slut it up. It won't cause any problems down the road. Not one, not a one. It'll just be good for you. It'll be very, very good for you and your self-esteem. And like the things that we get ourselves into, you know, if you were in a sorority or a fraternity and you go out and you party and there's all of those things. And I've mentioned the book a billion times. I will continue to do so as the body keeps the score. It is the best way that I can think about it is because it sits here. And I listed the other night what has happened to me in the past 20 years. I will never show it to anybody. It is fucking sad. And and I believe wholeheartedly that part of the reason that I've ended up half of my life in a wheelchair is because I didn't even know that all of these things were actually just going to sit there until I dealt with them. And so they're just they've been pushed down, you know, from your head down and slowly but surely. And now they're stuck in my legs. And so that for me is my best visual is that I've got to release things like from my hips down, wherever it comes from. Totally. And it's so amazing, the power of our mind and our mindset and the things that we can shift without a medication, without a pill, that all this other shit that they're throwing at us. Our inner power of our own selves is incredibly powerful. Yeah. If we just go, all right, you know, it might be a little woo-woo for some people. Right. For me, just, well, okay, so nothing else is working. What else do you want to try?
Right, exactly. And that's,
give it a whirl. Go out and hug a tree, damn it. Do it.
Exactly it. And that's, I mean, honestly, that's the perspective I take with some. And I do have a lot of clients who come to me and they're totally open to all of the energetic work. But then I have some that you know, they're a little skeptical. And that's my you know, the point I make to them too. I'm like, why not just try it? Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, nothing else is working. So let's try this.
Yeah. And we've tried 5,000 things and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, what's another $150 or whatever the hell? You
know? Exactly.
So let's move into a little bit about the difference between conventional and functional lab work, because I think it's really important for people to know the difference between those. Your viewpoint on it, because you and I share the same viewpoint. And then kind of talk about the mineral balancing and the hair tissue and mineral analysis, because that is so incredibly interesting versus blood tests.
So when we're looking at conventional versus functional, there's really, I think, two main differences. First off, conventional labs typically are going to measure, most of the time it's a blood lab. Like every now and then a doctor might do a stool test or something. For the most part, it's a blood lab. And any blood lab, regardless, but especially when I get into talking about the HTMA, when you're looking at any blood lab, it's a blip in time, right? Like this is what's going on in your body, like right now when I take your blood, right? So this is not taking into account what's been going on the past 3, 4, 5, 6 months, right? It's not taking into account the thing that happened last week when I was having this flare up, but now I'm not. And so now it's, you know, it's not reflecting any of that. With the functional lab, we're looking at other things, right? So we're looking at saliva or urine or blood spot, stool, hair, tissue, right? We're looking at other things and we want a broader look at what's going on over a longer period of time. And then the other big difference is the ranges, like the conventional range versus the functional range. Conventional range on any lab is basically based on like an average group of people. And it's like, the point of it is like, well, you're not dead. So that's it, right? So when we're looking at a functional lab, it's like, okay, let's look at optimal health, right? I'd rather live optimally than just not dead, right? And so I think that's the other thing that happens with women you know what I mean? I mean, you know what I mean?
I do. I totally do. Because I've been poked and prodded like nobody's business.
Yeah. Well, and people, I have people like you come to me all the time and they've gone to the doctors, they've been poked and prodded and all the things, all for the doctor to be like, oh, well, your labs look normal. Well, yeah, if you're looking at the conventional range, it's like, well, yeah, I'm alive and I'm breathing. Doesn't mean I feel good. And so we're looking at functional labs and functional ranges, it's a totally different range of optimal health. Like we want to get to optimal health and live and thrive and not just kind of survive and get through the day. And that's a lot of the clients I work with. A lot of it's like, they're literally just like having to, like you, like they're having to, like, I just need to get through the day. That's their motto every day. And it's no way to live. Why are we okay providing care, medical health care for people that's the end result? Well, I'm just going to get through the day. Like I don't know why that's okay.
Yeah, it's not okay. And it's gotten to the point, especially over here in our household, it is challenging, like beyond challenging. And I know that stress is a huge component to that. But so when you're doing conventional versus functional testing, what is the difference between the route that people take? Is it because with conventional, we all know it's like, all right, well, we get our blood test, we do this. How is it? Is it a different form of analysis, or is it different types of tests that are provided?
Yeah, it's different type of tests. So the three main labs that I use, I do the HTMA, which I know we'll talk about, which is literally you're sending in some of your hair. I do a GI map, which is a stool test, a really in-depth stool test. I do the Dutch test, which is really comprehensive hormone test. That's basically you pee on some paper. It's a dried urine test.
Yeah, I've done them all.
Yeah, you've done all those. Every now and then I do, depending on the client, I'll do an organic acids test, which is also a urine test. There's a saliva test. So yeah, it's different like bodily fluids we're looking at, but it is just a different measure as well.
Yeah. And I can tell you the poop tests are so much fun, guys.
It's very glamorous.
It's super stinky. It's like nothing better than digging through your poo.
Exactly it.
It is so gross. But you said something earlier about like IBS, right? Mm-hmm. And it's similar to like fibromyalgia, where it's just like these kind of like junk diagnosis because they can't figure it out. And I don't mean, for God's sakes, please don't blow me up about it's a junk analysis or a diagnosis because you have quote unquote IBS or quote unquote fibromyalgia. I am here to tell you that based on all of the conversations that I've had and all of the research I've had, they just don't know what else to do.
That's exactly it.
They don't know what else to do. So we're just going to put you in this big old bucket and Godspeed.
Right.
Good
luck. That's exactly
basically it.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
It is. Yeah. Well, and even then you have other, like I've had so many clients who the doctors, because that's the thing, that's how medical and insurance, how that works. You got to have a diagnosis to have the code to give you the to pass the buck along. And so even my clients I've had clients who've been diagnosed with RA and all these other things where they don't even have that, but they needed the diagnosis to pass the buck along to it. Let's go see this doctor now, right? Like that's the thing is that's how the conventional medical system works. We got to have the diagnosis. We can treat this symptom here with this medication, or I can pass you off to this other doctor, and then you're their problem.
Yeah. And then all we are is pushed around and pushed around and pushed around and more frustrated and more sick.
Totally.
But I mean, I believe wholeheartedly, I use the word wholeheartedly so much on this show. I guess it's just like the Wholeheartedly show with Lyndsay Soprano. But I believe wholeheartedly that we're just being fucked with. And it just drives me insane. Like, okay, great. You've given me this diagnosis and you're putting me on this pill, which I don't do because I don't do the pill thing. And I'm glad that I don't, but I still have these issues. I know hard stop what some of the things I need to do. I know that. I know my weaknesses. I know the places I need to improve, where a lot of people don't. Mm-hmm. They're not honest with themselves. They're not open with themselves. They're not journaling. They're not going through the things that they need to do to figure out, like, there's core issues that are going on that, like, I know the people in my life that will flare me. I know the people in my life that I need to avoid. I know the people in my life that I've cut out. I know certain triggers of foods. I know certain triggers with people. I know certain things that will occur that will be like, whoa, all of a sudden my legs feel like they need to be chopped off. And I'm like, well, who are you hanging around? Mm-hmm. And then my answer is, and so that is stress. That is management. That is cutting out toxicity in your life on that whole plane as well, which is nuts. But okay, so can you talk really quick? So I kind of like derailed for just a second. But can you talk about HTMA, please? Because you've mentioned it a couple of times. It's called hair, tissue, and mineral analysis. Because that's really interesting to me.
Yeah. So the HTMA is a look at your hair, which is a tissue, right? So you're sending in a teaspoon of your hair to get analyzed. So of course you can go to the doctor, right? You can get a blood panel to look at your mineral levels. But like I said before, it's really just a blip in time, right? And when you're looking at your tissues, which hair is a tissue, you're looking at what's going on chronically. So we're getting a good look at what's going on at like the last 3 or 4 months. Not only that, but when you get your blood tested for minerals, a lot of the really important minerals are intracellular, meaning they're supposed to be in your cells. So when we look at a blood panel, it's really not that accurate of a look at what's going on with all of your mineral levels. And I've had clients come to me before where their doctors are like, oh, like your potassium levels are kind of high. Potassium is intracellular. It's supposed to be in your cells. So it's high in your blood actually means you're deficient. It's not bioavailable. Like it's floating around your blood. It's supposed to be in your cells. So that's not the case actually. So it's just really misunderstood how minerals work and how they move in and out of the cells. And so with an HTMA, we're able to look at what's going on chronically and what's going on at a cellular level because you're looking at your tissues. So it's a much more accurate look and a better look at what's going on chronically. So we're measuring on this lab anywhere from it's around 24 minerals. We're looking at the big ones, right? Like the big macro minerals like potassium, magnesium, sodium, and calcium. And then a handful of others. We're looking at heavy metals, looking at toxic elements. And then we also look at the relationships between the minerals because that's the other piece too. And I think that's why getting a blood panel and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but every blood panel I've ever seen, they're just looking at, it's like, here's the mineral, here's these minerals, and it just lists out the minerals and that's it. When the individual minerals are important, but it's also the relationships between the minerals that are important and to understand the relationships between them because you can look even at an HTMA, you can look at it at face value and you can interpret it 28 different ways. But if you look at the ratios between certain minerals, it's going to tell you a totally different story. So when you look at the ratios we're looking at, you can tell how your adrenals are functioning and your thyroid, your blood sugar regulation and metabolism, your carb metabolism, your nervous system, your liver, your hormone balance. There's so many things we can look at looking at the relationships between the minerals too.
Can you opt out of the liver part of that test?
That is a no.
Damn it. Does it show the amount of cocaine I did back in my 20s?
No, it won't tell you that.
Yeah, how far does it go back? You said a couple months?
Yeah, it's around 3 or 4 months is how far it goes back. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I joke about that because, they always do the drug test, back in the day when everyone was drinking a tea to get rid of because they're like, oh my God, I can't have my mom know that I'm smoking pot. God bless America. I now do pot with my mom. It's a wonderful world. If you guys knew my mom, you'd know what a crazy thing that is for her to even think about doing that. But she's a little Miss Gummy now. But that's so interesting. So now you've got all of these results and the intricacies of the relationship between them, right? And because it's a relationship, just like we are with people. There are things that jive and things that don't, and things that need to be fixed. And that's why we go to, some people go to, therapists for their couples counseling or whatever. It's almost like you're a couples counselor for minerals and such. Yeah. And so I do too, actually. Thank you, Lyndsay. But when you join those and you look at them, so can you give me, do you have a good story of somebody that came in that you can give as an example? And I'm sorry, I totally put you on the spot.
I just had a conversation with one yesterday.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So one of my clients yesterday, we were going through her labs. So there's a few things I think that surprise people the most in their HTMA. A lot of times it's around sodium and calcium. And for my client yesterday, for example, and she's dealing with pretty intense gut symptoms, energy levels, sleep, hormones are all over. I mean, she's got a laundry list of things going on. And so looking at her HTMA, her calcium levels were really elevated. And so we look at it and we think, okay, well, I have too much calcium, but it's different. A blood test for calcium is different than a tissue test in calcium. Your calcium is a structural mineral. 99% of it's supposed to be in your bones and your teeth. So when it's being pushed out into your tissue, this is creating problems because now you're taking the risk of building what's called a calcium shell around your cells and your nerves, and it's going to cause issues. So for my thyroid clients, typically their calcium is really elevated and they have this calcium shell around their cells. And so the thyroid hormone's having trouble getting in and out of their cells. Well, no wonder your thyroid is struggling because your cells can't take in your thyroid hormone.
It's like trying to go through a concrete wall.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also causing, I had one client who she had her calcium shell was it was massive. It was off the charts. She was dealing with things like ADHD and anxiety and all these mental, emotional things going on because it's also traveling to your brain and the tissues and the cells in your brain. It's affecting how your brain's functioning. And my client yesterday, the other thing, her sodium was through the roof. Again, this isn't saying she's eating too much sodium. This is saying that the sodium is being pushed onto your tissues because it's a stress response. Your adrenals, when they're stressed, they release sodium. You have more sodium in your adrenals. Your adrenals use more sodium than any other part of your body. And so the fact that her sodium stores are so elevated, like your adrenals are working in overdrive right now. Like we're taking the risk of going to like full on adrenal exhaustion, which I have plenty of clients who are there. And so there's another indication like, okay, let's focus on the adrenals. Her zinc and copper ratio was off. Her zinc was like through the roof. Her copper was super low, which you would see that on the lab and think, okay, she's deficient in copper. It's actually when her zinc is that high and the copper is that low, it's the opposite. Your body, it's bio unavailable. It's not able to use the copper. And there's like this toxicity going on in the body. And so being able to like pinpoint these, okay, so now we have her adrenals need help. She needs to get her calcium down. We need to raise her magnesium. We need to get her zinc to copper ratio. So we have this list of things that are showing up, and all of that was correlating to her symptoms. The zinc to copper ratio is your like hormonal ratio. So it's pointing the fact that she has this extreme estrogen dominance, which she does. And that's the thing too, I think it's important to note is a lot of women come to me for their hormones, right? They think like, just fix my hormones. I don't know what to do, fix my hormones. Your hormones are just another sign that something is off. Like your hormones are never the root cause. So getting to the root cause of your hormones means we have to go deeper. And for me, I always start with the minerals. I never address the hormones before I address them. I never address anything before I address the minerals. Because the minerals are what's going on at the cellular level. Like I was saying, that's what the HTMA is reading. And so no reaction in the body can happen without minerals. It's there that you've probably heard like the spark plugs in the body, the minerals are like, it literally is igniting every reaction in the body. So when our minerals are deficient or depleted or just out of balance, it's affecting every function and every reaction in the body. So to me, it's useless just, going straight to addressing your hormones when the minerals are out of whack. Like, we got to start with the minerals.
So my copper, for example, is like freaking off the charts high, like out of control high. And they're like, how the hell? Like, what is that? And I mean, I'd love to send you the tests that I've done and see what your thoughts are on them. But it's because I've done all of the metal toxicity and I've done this and I've done that. And again, like I said in the beginning, now I have all of this information and I have 2 more tests that I'm jumping into. Now I've got all of this, and now it's that whole, now what do I do with it? And that is the frustration I think that we're all dealing with. And it doesn't even have anything to, well, it has something to do with chronic pain, but it means everybody that's got other stuff, because it's not just what we're talking about here. It's not just about chronic pain. It's chronic health issues. And we all have something. I mean, we're all aging. We've all been through trauma. We've all been through health stuff. We've all been through. And so like I always say is that everybody is different. Every body is a different body, And so we all have to look at ourselves holistically for you as a person, not what the books are telling you that you're supposed to be. And that's the thing that drives me batshit crazy, which is why I've moved a lot away from doctors just as a whole, because all they've done is cause me problems. That's it. All they've done is make me more sick. But as we know here in the United States, and I know I've got listeners that are all over the world, which thank you so much for joining us. But the United States, I mean, we keep our people sick. This is just like what we do. It's part of our business. And it's really, really sucky.
Yeah.
And so what we have to do, and unfortunately, it's pricey.
Yeah. Right.
Because there isn't a code for X, Y, and Z. And so we struggle to do a more holistic approach to things for our bods, because our country's infrastructure in the healthcare industry is absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And, we're all sick. I mean, everybody's sick.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. And I think that part is the part that frustrates me the most. And that's really one of the only things that ever holds people back from working with me is, now some people do have, success using their HSA or something for labs and stuff and for working with me, but not everybody takes that and not everybody has HSA. But it drives me crazy that, like, because really, I mean, the model of health that we're promoting in this country is sick care. Like, we're not trying to get people healthy. So it's just like, let's just manage your symptoms. And not everybody can afford to do functional labs. And there's not enough competition with these labs to bring the price down. So they are, they're pricey. They're not cheap.
Yeah.
And
I mean, every single test I've taken is absolutely within the range of $750 to $2,000.
Yeah.
Gross.
I believe it. Yeah.
So I know that you work with a lot of, and we've talked about like medical gaslighting. And I kind of wanted to like move into that really quick. Because I know that's something that you wanted to talk about. So I feel like that's kind of a good segue into that.
Yeah. It's a good conversation.
Yeah. So let's get into that. What are your thoughts on medical gaslighting?
How long do we have?
I know. Well, we could go another 2 to 3 hours on this topic.
I'm telling you. No, I mean, I think, the piece we were talking about the cost is like equally as frustrating as the medical gaslighting thing. And there was this article, and it was this reporter that was talking about medical gaslighting and had interviewed all these women. And basically the point of the article was how substantially higher medical gaslighting is in women versus men. And these women that she was interviewing they had like stage 4 cancer and had been brushed off by like doctor, and not even one doctor after doctor after doctor. I mean, the list, it's insanity. And it's crazy to me that doctors aren't dumb. They're smart human beings. And these doctors know that these things happen, that women get brushed off and end up with these things. And yet they still don't do anything to change the narrative and are still brushing women off. And I would say 85% of the clients that come to work with me, it may be higher now, have had the same thing. And now they don't all have stage 4 cancer, but they've got real issues and they've got real things going on with their body where it's like, I'm coming to you telling you that I have symptoms and I don't feel good, but you're telling me that everything's fine, and you don't have the wherewithal or to look deeper, to dig deeper. And it blows my mind.
It blows my mind like nobody's business. And in fact, there was an episode, I want to say it's episode 25, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember. But I spoke to a litigator. His name's Adam Slater, and he was an attorney he's still an attorney, but he was an attorney on a Netflix documentary called The Bleeding Edge. And it was all about medical device and all of just the absolute batshit stuff that the medical device community has done, or the doctors, and more marketing. And I'm in it, and it kind of barfed me out about the whole entire thing about marketing and how we're involved in a lot of the problems with patients. And I didn't even connect marketing with malpractice in any way, shape, or form. And my whole world shifted when I watched this documentary. So I reached out to this dude, but he was talking about just this topic about how you're like, how is it possible? I came in here and I told you I had all of these symptoms. And what he said, one of the things he said in the episode that was so like, whoa, he said, of all the litigation that I've done, obviously this is not verbatim, but of all the litigation that he had done, women gynecologists were the worst contributor to all of the women's issues, because the women, I know it's totally worth a watch of the documentary, and B, worth a listen to the episode, because it's it's for women and men. It is eye-opening beyond eye-opening. And it was about how women doctors actually treat their women patients worse than male doctors treat their women patients. And it was like, what? And then I got back and I kind of thought about some of the women doctors that I've worked with and kind of going, because they're like, well, I have a vagina,
right,
and I've never experienced that. I had the same thing happen to me and I didn't have it. So I don't know what the fuck you're, exactly. You're not right. You're dreaming this up. I mean, it's just unbelievable, because we're not being treated as a separate human being from everybody else. And it's driving me crazy. And I don't know when that's going to change or how we can help change it outside of having conversations like we're having right now and sharing them with everybody that we know.
Right.
Because we are in charge of our body. Nobody else is. If you don't decide to make the choice to say, I am going to fix this or fix that or whatever, and I'm going to do the research and I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm not going to be swayed by marketing, I'm not going to be swayed by this next, how many pamphlets have we been handed, guys? How many samples of a pill that this doctor knows absolutely nothing about do they hand you the little sleeve to test it out for a while? We are the guinea pigs and they're all making money on it. And I'm sorry, I'm getting on a soapbox big time right now.
Preach it. I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
I'm getting mad.
I'm with you. Well, it drives me crazy that I had an interview with a gal the other day. We were talking about this, how Western medicine, like we've kind of separated the mind and the body, right? In that sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like this medical gaslighting, it's the same too. It's like we're especially women, like we're being taught and conditioned to question our intuition. Where it's like, and this is a disconnection from ourselves, like our intuition. And for years, for centuries, that's what people went off of was, okay, something feels off. My intuition is telling me something's off, so I should listen to it. But the Western model doesn't that part blows my mind too. And so now we're separating ourselves from ourselves, our intuition. And then the mind body separation piece gets me too. It's like, because that's the other piece that we're not connecting. Like, because I have clients who come to me, they're like, my doctor, one of my former clients messaged me on Instagram the other day to tell me this story. She was like, I was still dealing with some symptoms and kind of managing. The doctor didn't ask her anything about her stress levels, nothing about her environment, nothing about her diet, nothing. There's no questions on any of that.
No.
So like, how are we leaving that piece out and the mental health piece out of the conversation? I don't understand that. And I do think, I mean, it's conversation, but I think it's all about money, right? I mean, in this country, it's the pharmaceutical companies running the show here. So it's all about where to make money. I mean, it has to be a complete overhaul, either a complete overhaul of the system, or it has to be something to come along to revamp how we're doing the functional piece, like what we're talking about with these labs that are so expensive, like how to make that more accessible for people to be able to take that route. And I hate that word alternative methods, because it's not alternative. Like, this is traditional methods. I had a woman who does traditional Chinese medicine that came to my show. And I'm like, why are we calling this alternative? Like, people did this for thousands of years before we ever came up with Western medicine.
Yeah. FYI, America was like the last place to happen. Okay.
Exactly.
Like, we are the worst.
It's so true.
Let's talk really quick before we jam about what you do with your Hopeful and Wholesome business that you have. You can find her a brand new website, and it's like freaking awesome.
Thank you.
It is hopefulandwholesome.com. And we'll put all her socials and stuff in show notes. But can you just give a quick little overview of what you do and any last remarks that you have for our listeners?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically everything we're talking about here, I mean, I connect the body. I do functional labs. I do the emotional, spiritual, energetic healing. I tie in human design. We do emotional release. So I'm tying all the things in to help you heal, get to the root cause, heal from the inside out. I have a podcast. You want to check that out for more just insight on all of that I was just talking about. And yeah, I mean, I think my parting words kind of goes back to what we've been talking about, is just really taking the time to tune into your intuition and listen to your intuition, and don't doubt your intuition. And if your body and your intuition is telling you that something is off, something is not right, something is out of balance, then like find somebody who will listen to take that to heart and really get to the bottom of it, and never question what your intuition is telling you.
I love that. And like I've said many times before, you go with your gut. You know, that line is like a legit thing, as if you go with your gut, then your gut's pretty right all the time, guys. Don't push it down. Don't ignore it. Think about it, and if somebody's not listening to you, just walk out the door and say, you know what, you're not listening to me. Bye-bye. And then you go to the next person, because I've done it.
Yeah.
I've walked into lobbies and walked out of doctors' offices. And of course, because everybody knows how wonderfully obnoxious I can be, I've walked into lobbies and I'm like, get out of here. Just get out. And then I walk out the door. Yeah, people love me in places like that and circumstances.
Hey, you have agency to do that though. Well, that's it. You have to, who else is going to do it? Like you said,
Oh my God. Well, I've given pain purpose, and I mean, that's really what it came down to. And some days it's really fun to give pain purpose, and others it's not, but I still do it. And it's awesome. And it's so wonderful to meet people like you that are like-minded and believe the same approach to care for our bodies, and that we're not just, oh, my elbow hurts or whatever. There's other things that can be going on in our lives, so go with your gut and give Hope a Hopeful and Wholesome call or DM or whatever. So I'll put everything in show notes and on social when our episode launches, of course. Thank you so much for your time with me today. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. I was looking forward to us talking, because your voice is so damn cute. I just want to die.
I love talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I look forward to doing our episode together too. So you guys stay tuned for both of those puppies.
For sure.
You are exclusively invited to share this hopeful and wholesome VIP pain journey together. Let's get to the heart of how to heal with you by my side. Do you know someone who is living in and with chronic pain? If you do, please send them our way here to the Pain Game Podcast. I would love to connect with them and hear their heartfelt stories of strength and wisdom and awesomeness. And reviews. Oh, yes, that's right. Stop what you're doing right now and hop on Spotify and Apple and give the show a review, or 100. I'd love to have my community of listeners help drive traffic to the show so we can continue to help others on their journeys through trauma and pain and wellness together. Please follow the Pain Game Podcast wherever you digest your podcast content. We will be there. Visit us at thepaingamepodcast.com and follow us on all the socials. Thanks for listening, my little VIPs. Catch you on the other side.